welcome to Dragons in the House, a podcast for discussing HBO's series House of the Dragon. I'm Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive scientist, philosopher at Illinois State University.
I'm Cianna Greaves. I am a podcast producer, public radio producer, coming to you from Chicago, Illinois.
Hi, I'm Dr. Stanford Carpenter. I'm a cultural anthropologist coming to you out of Chicago, Illinois.
Fantastic. And today we come together to discuss episode 8, The Lord of the Tides. So, I got to say, lots of drama, lots of fantastic acting. I say some amazing CGI in this episode. What do you guys think?
I think this was definitely Patty Considine's.
Lord
what a way to go out.
What a way to go out.
Such a hauntingly beautiful performance. I mean, yes. This was Viserys stepping up to be the king that we all wanted him to be. And it was, a father's last, I don't know what I want to say.
It was his last moment.
It was his last moment and sort of his last, I guess we could say gift to his daughter. I mean, it was
straight up. Yep.
Really absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And Patty Considine, can he get an Oscar for this? I mean, I know it's TV, but my God.
It was so well done.
So moving. It was. Just like, it was crazy. It was very good.
All of his lines.
Best episode so far.
When he walked into the throne room where Rhaenyra was about to start making her case.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets walking up to the throne and he keeps telling people, let me go. I can handle this. I can do this. And then he drops the crown. Someone picks it up. He says, I can do this. And it's Daemon. That was just really, really touching scene. Daemon walks him up to the throne and he says, why are we talking about this again?
Yeah.
Why are we talking about this
because I feel
again?
like this is a settled matter. So why are we petitioning for a settled matter? I mean, it was great.
It was great. Yeah.
This was the episode where I found a new and different sense of respect for some of the characters that we've seen previously. And I'm not saying I didn't like them before. I'm just saying it really recontextualized the characters. And I think that's one thing that I find interesting about the way they've had so many time jumps.
Yep.
I have mixed feelings about the time jumps because I kind of want to see a lot of these stories that are happening in between the time jumps.
Exactly.
But I mean, more than anything else, I actually had a lot more respect for the king. And I thought that what they're able to do, like, because they had the time jumps, because we've seen the way all the other characters have evolved, that last scene was so much more powerful. And the scene, the second to the last scene, when they're all at dinner, right?
Yeah.
Because I was looking at that scene, I was thinking to myself, if we hadn't seen all of these kids at different stages in their lives, I don't think that the scene would have been nearly as powerful. Because as I looked around the table, even though I had my sense of good guys and bad guys, I could see why they had their feelings. Like, I could see why Aemon hates and wants to kill his nephews, right? Yes. I mean, there he is sitting with one eye, right? But then also knowing other parts of the story, I could see where Luke and Jace are like, yeah, we want the other eye now.
Bring it on, dude.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, all of this has so much more power. But and then there's also what I find really interesting is how it resets the cruelty. Like Aemon's cruelty comes through in ways that I don't think I would have seen otherwise. I mean, some of the comments that are being made to, I believe it was Jace, right, about being able to satisfy his soon-to-be wife, right? That kind of stuff. But there's a context for it that makes it more cruel. Even the whole thing about like questioning the parentage of these kids, right? It's like even as Vaemon is questioning the kid's parentage, what I have in my mind is Corlys's conversation with Luke right?
Mhm.
Where he says, well, you're going to be the Lord of Driftmark. So Corlys was on board with
Yep.
him being the Lord of Driftmark. And then his response being, I don't want to be the Lord. And he's like, he said, why? And he said, because that means all of you will be dead, right?
Mhm.
Which I think is one of the all-time best lines I've ever seen, because it actually describes like the melancholy and the love of rising, right?
Mhm.
But having all that in the background as Vaemon's just like, you're a bastard, you're a whore.
Yeah.
There was it increased the drama of all of that.
Yeah, I agree with you. You can see where the writing's been going. It really, really culminated. There's a scene that really stuck out to me during dinner, and that was when the boys started fighting, and then Aemond looked like he was about to really go after the two, and Daemon stepped in.
Oh, yes.
And you saw these two Targaryens staring at each other. One, I got to tell you, what that look in Daemon's eyes was, don't worry, I'll be taking care of them pretty soon. I mean, in other words, you're not doing this right now. And it's almost as if Daemon were looking at himself, and almost saying to Aemon, brother, you got to learn how to play the Game of Thrones a little slower, right? This is not the place for it. And that was a well-crafted scene. I mean, the whole scene was beautiful, but when Daemon stepped in up against Aemon, it wasn't just back off, kid. It was a pretty complex emotional scene. It only lasted a few seconds, but I thought it was pretty riveting.
I read it a little bit differently.
Yeah, sure.
I read it as, I kind of read it a little bit as Daemon saying, I could take you now or I can take you later, but I will take you.
See, I thought there was a little more Targaryen resonance going on in that scene. I mean, it's almost as if for me, Daemon was saying, yeah, okay, so they're Strong's kids. I know it. And you know what? I'm going to be the king consort pretty soon. So just back off. You'll have your day at some point, and today is not it.
And that's but in that, what I think is interesting, and this is what I find really interesting about Daemon's character right now, is a lot of his cruelty stops at family. Right? I mean, if you think about this episode, look at the way he helped his brother, not just getting on the throne, but like the whole sussing out that he was being fed, that he was addled with drugs. The whole like helping, like he was very tender with his brother, right?
Yep.
Well, they needed Viserys.
They needed him. Okay, we can't.
There was definitely an ulterior. I feel like the Daemon always has an ulterior motive. He
has an ulterior. I agree. That I'm not saying he doesn't have an ulterior motive, but I'm saying the cruelty. Like there's a cruelty to him, right? Go all the way back to the Crab King when he didn't cut off his head; he sliced him in half. Like that's more what I'm talking about. It's that side to him. He does not. He clearly. I mean, he doesn't. The sense that I get is he never defined Vaemon as relative, brother, or friend. And like look at how quickly he just like offed him. I thought it was, and so I guess that's what I'm saying. It's like
which is interesting to me because he was a friend and he was a relative, and they fought in battle. They were in battle together at the steps.
Yeah.
So we got to
cut him down quite quickly and casually because Vaemon and Vaemon's claim to Driftmark, did not serve Daemon's purposes. And I agree, Scott. I think Daemon will deal with Jace and Luke to make sure that his children are next in line for succession. His children with Rhaenyra. I
want to continue this conversation about Daemon's cruelty because it's usually how do I say this? Happens at a particular important point. So, for example, when he cut the Crab King in half, not only was he second son raging, but he was also just garnering the allegiance of Corlys, right? I mean, remember it was Laenor who was telling his father and his uncle, Daemon's the only one fighting this war. And when Daemon did that to the Crab King, he sort of solidified that allegiance with Corlys and Lenore. And it was the brother, the uncle, who was kind of on the outs on that. So Daemon has a way of being cruel. I won't argue that. And it seems to be at these moments that are politically very important. So the cruelty tends to be, yeah, like I said, in sort of important political moments. He has a sense for what moments will matter when. And damn.
I hear you, but even when we start talking about like succession, we keep, Jason Luke, they're marrying his daughters, right? I mean,
yes.
That's true. So when I look at this whole family tree from from Daemon's perspective, it gets really, really interesting because you know what? No matter who is next in line, they're his blood. And
you know what? Rhaenyra made that deal with Rhaenys without him.
Knowing that.
We don't know if Daemon knew that Rhaenyra was going to propose that matchup. What's interesting is when Rhaenys revealed it, we didn't get any looks like Daemon, like he might have been surprised or anything along those lines. Well, that's the interesting
I don't
point.
think those children
really
belong to this world,
really
and I don't think he cares if it hurts Rhaenyra or if it hurts his own children. We saw him. I think the only people that matter right now are his children, his two children with Rhaenyra, and the one child they have on the way. Honestly.
Oh, you don't think
she is the heir to the throne? He has already secured 3 dragon eggs for them.
Yep.
And I was very surprised that he did nothing to avenge Baela and the fact that Aemon stole Vhagar from his daughter. He was kind of very happy to let that go. He did nothing.
As a matter of fact, that night when he heard it happening, he said someone's with Vhagar or someone's, right. and he didn't sound upset. He didn't sound surprised. No. So you're right. There is a certain
that was their birthright.
Right. And he laughed at dinner. Why did he laugh at dinner? Do you remember when they were having dinner in this episode and he laughed? Someone made a toast and he laughed about it. And so he laughed at the funeral. He has a very flip attitude.
Are now wards of Corlys and Rhaenys.
Yeah.
Doesn't even live with them anymore.
Yeah. No.
So I don't think he really gives 2 shits about those 4 children, unfortunately. I don't think his cruelty stops with family.
Okay. Well, there you go. Depending on how. No, I think he's very utilitarian. He's I don't want to use the word sociopathic, but it's slightly sociopathic and very Machiavellian. Can
we talk about Rhaenyra?
Yeah, we can talk about Rhaenyra.
I love that she loves being in love. I'm really happy for her. She seems to love being pregnant. It's her favorite thing to do. She has 4 children now, right, and 1 on the way. And she's just seems to be I don't know what happened to our very defiant, dragon riding, boar slaying Rhaenyra Targaryen. We kind of have barefoot and pregnant Rhaenyra, who's like, hey, Dad, I know you're dying, but I do need you to swoop in and save me. She can't say boo to a ghost. It's just, I'm not sure what they're doing, what the plan is for that character.
I love it. I mean, so when she actually, in the episode Driftmark, when she basically seduced her uncle and said, I need you, they're coming after me, I'm not going to survive without you. And they supposedly, fell in love. I think those kind of developments in her character reveal that she really does love the Game of Thrones, and she really does want to be queen, and she really does want her kids to rule. Whereas earlier when she was a kid, she could afford to pretend like it didn't matter.
Mhm.
but now she can't afford to pretend like it doesn't matter. And now this episode showed just how much it does matter completely to her, and to everybody. I mean, my gosh, the scene where Viserys walks in and you can just see Hightower's face, Otto's face just drop,
yeah,
and Ellison's face just drop, and the whole family on the other side just drops. It's intense.
Aegon thought it was quite amusing. I like Aegon. He was like, well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. Yeah, he's gonna have some kind of knockdown drag out with someone before. I mean, a
I think
real
it's going
one
to be
to
with
the
his
death.
mom or his grandfather. He's very anti everything.
Mm.
Everything's a bit of a joke. He doesn't want to be king. I don't think he is. He doesn't care.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I was confused. Yes, Aegon was laughing. I heard Aemond, and yeah, no, you're right. He was. He's
like,
yeah, he's kind of a disappointment. I don't think he's gonna last long.
I think he is. I actually think, because one thing I find really interesting is that oftentimes the people who end up being the best kings are the people who don't want to be king.
Yes, the ones who really, yeah, exactly. I'm not gonna argue with that.
I think that we're gonna. I don't know. I mean, it's problematic. I really don't like his character, but then I just keep thinking, well, he's the one who is the least concerned about the game, which positions him to make some very different decisions.
Yes, kind of like Daemon. Acting flip about the game.
Yeah. And well, Daemon is truly. I think Daemon is the ultimate player of the game, right? I mean, he has weaseled his way, and like I said, into being related to everybody.
Fair enough. Yes.
Yes. And ultimately, I have this feeling that he's going to end up fighting with Rhaenyra.
Oh,
because
for sure.
Yeah, and that's going to.
That relationship is not going to last.
And that's going to be. I think
at some point, Rhaenyra is going to have to take what she wants, and she's going to have to do it on her own,
right?
By her own, she. I don't know how that's going to go, and I want to see more of that. I'm ready to see Rhaenyra sort of come into her own.
True.
She wasn't a timid or easily intimidated child.
Yeah, I think right now it's to her advantage to be married and alive with Daemon. But if their situation arises where it's not, then I think you're right. I think we'll see that change in her character. There's something I want to talk about. It's about, you mentioned earlier, Stanford, about the time jumps. And one thing I really enjoyed about this episode was Rhaenyra and Allison experiencing their characters through the eyes of their younger selves. I just, for some reason, when I watched this episode the second time, when I was seeing Rhaenyra, I kind of felt the presence of her younger self. And when I was watching Allison, I felt the presence of her younger self in the current character in ways that I don't know that I've experienced before in a show with these kind of time jumps. I just thought they did a really good job. Maybe it has to do with the Viserys dying, and so all of these emotions coming to the fore in everyone. I just thought that they did a really good job with that.
I like that moment at dinner. Yeah. When they both, had this sort of acknowledgement of their former lives and their former relationship and how much they used to love each other.
Yeah. But I think that dinner also brings up is how, we fight the most when we're young and we reconcile as we get older, right? Or we're more likely to, like we can have more meaningful reconciliations as we get older because we have this perspective.
Well, once you have the throne, it's easy to reconcile. Once her kid's going to get the throne, when she's going to be queen, it's easier for her to reconcile with Allison.
No, but I was thinking about it generationally, right? Like, you got the king being like, we just all got to get along, right?
Mm-hmm.
but then you've got the next generation who's at the table, and they're kind of all on the edge of reconciliation. Like you've got, Rhaenyra and Alicent, right? With the toast, right? And then ultimately things go to hell in a handbasket when you go down to the next generation, because they're just like, screw this. We hate each other and we're going to kill each other, right?
So,
like that.
Well, they kind of make that, they acknowledge that, right? They said, yeah, we used to be very close. We have a lot in common, but ultimately we are both mothers and we love our children very much.
And Rhaenyra only
And we're going to do what we have to do to protect our children.
And Rhaenyra only made that toast after the king had basically told everyone, this is my heir. This is how this is going to play out. I don't know that they were much into reconciling prior to him walking into the throne room and making that proclamation. So for me, what the kids represent is the thoughts of the parents, right? In other words, the kids are just acting on all that stuff the parents are thinking and not acting on because they're older.
I'm not saying the parents aren't willing to go to war. I'm just saying, but they're actually also willing to try and figure out a compromise and figure out some sort of peace. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen that what was happening with the marrying people off. The younger ones are just like, we'll just solve it by wiping each other out. Like there's not like, there's no negotiation there. It is just.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing like I said, I think they've done well in this show is that you can pose multiple motives for any particular character's actions at a given moment. They're not giving you exactly what someone's motive is. And one of the reasons that Vaemond was struck down is because he made his motives so perfectly clear at a moment that was not opportune in terms of Game of Thrones logic, right? I mean,
also, Corlys is still alive.
Well, that's the thing.
As far as we know.
Right.
Yeah.
He ain't even dead yet.
Vaemond could have just gone back. He didn't
definitely held his tongue and lived to fight another day. But I feel like I see a lot of myself in Vaemond, that sometimes you just feel very passionately about things.
Yeah.
Like, damn the consequences. I got to say what I got to say.
Well,
I probably would have done this.
And watching that scene with contemporary eyes, it was difficult, right? Because he's making a claim about his blood, and you're not going to replace my blood and all that we've been through with these bastards.
I think he wholly expected to die. There was no other outcome. In the throne room in front of the king, you call the heir to the Iron Throne a whore. He's not stupid.
I don't think he's stupid,
I'm going out telling the truth. I don't think he did it as safe hacked in half.
I'm not sure he was suicide by Daemon, right? I mean, anyway, I'll stop there.
Once betrayed, once Rhaenys, spoke up and said, hey.
Well,
these were Corlys's fault. It was case closed at that point. So
yep, exactly. Well, but see, he could have gone and he was allied with the Hightowers. They made that clear earlier, right? So the war is going to come one way or another. He could have come back and tried to take over the ships of Driftmark and join the Hightowers in a revolution. Those were still possibilities, right?
You could have just killed Luke and Jace.
He could have, yeah.
Or he could have just acknowledged the fact that, once Luke and Jake marry Baela and Rhaena, that the Driftmark bloodline does continue.
Right.
To me, I actually saw that as like a really elegant solution. I completely see why. I'm like, dag, Rhaenyra really she knows how to play the game. Like that was actually the best solution. It preserved all the bloodlines.
Right.
And so that's kind of what one of the things that got me about it was that was the moment where we saw in Vaemond that he really wasn't protecting his bloodline. He was that was about his own ambition. Once that deal was cut, he could have just been like, he should have been like, oh.
That's pretty much what Viserys said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your line will continue.
Right.
And it's nothing to do with you because you're nothing but the second son.
Second son.
So
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, because if he was really about playing the game and making the line continue, then what he would have been doing is making sure that his children were marrying the children of Bela and Reina, right? Like, boom. Like,
Does
if
he
you want
have
to
children?
solidify the bloodline.
Does he have
But-
children?
I would
have
be
no
surprised
idea.
if he didn't, because everybody out there is going around spreading stuff.
Yeah. Any
And if he
other
didn't have children, then he's definitely not playing the game. I mean, he just
Right.
that's something
Well-
that's something he can have some control of.
yeah. I mean that yeah. So are there any other scenes or lines or things that popped out to you guys, major plot movements from this episode?
Not really. Viserys's death scene was
It's fantastic.
beautiful.
It was fantastic.
When he
Yeah.
says "my love" at the end,
Yeah.
he clearly
Yeah.
sees Emma. It was just absolutely gorgeous. I mean,
Yep. Oh, and the CGI
He
was
did his best.
stunning. The CGI was amazing when they sat him up and he looked like he was half the girth,
Yeah.
a healthy person. That was stunning CGI. Usually don't see it used that way. And I thought that they did a really good job.
I mean,
I would say at the end of the day, I would. Viserys was a good king. He
Yeah.
did his best.
Well, he did his
He
best.
did his
yes.
best, and he loved his family, and you know, he as far as he knows,
Right.
preserved
No.
his bloodline, and he has died knowing that the Targaryen he wants will sit on the Iron Throne.
Yes, he did get what he wanted, didn't he?
He did get what he wanted.
Yeah. He didn't get family peace, but he got what he wanted in terms
Yep.
of passing on you're right.
And he is, fulfilled this prophecy. Everything, as far as he knows, he's done is to preserve the world of men. I mean,
Fair enough.
what more can you
Well, if you're
I-
ask for a
Damon.
guy? I mean,
I can't look. I still can't look past his early decisions. I don't think he was a great king. I think,
I said he was
I
a good
think-
king.
Yeah, there you go.
I think he was a very sympathetic. To me, he was very. I have a lot of sympathy for him, right? Because I could see why he made some of his bad decisions, but he made some really bad decisions. I mean, let's start with Alicent. That's the bad decision that keeps on giving. I mean, and while I can sympathize, and I also sympathize with Alicent, like I see her seething rage over like I feel like her, like the death of her goodness is the death of 1,000 cuts.
I don't feel bad for Alicent.
But
How? For why?
I think what
I've got
resonates
stuck
with me,
defending that answer in another context. So go ahead and defend Allison.
well, no, I think it resonates with me, her fear for the lives of her children.
Yeah.
In terms of understanding, because she understands that the Game of Thrones is not it. It's she sees it as a game of life and death. It resonates with me. I don't think it's right. When I say something resonates, I'm not saying it's right, but I kind of understand. Like her character makes sense to me. Like, yes, her seething jealousy over her friend getting to have so much more agency in her life, right? But I also see this issue of agency as also being the difference between the people who are closest to the throne and the people who are furthest away from the throne. I mean, she was pimped out by her father, right? And and instead of really acknowledging that she was being pimped out, she was like, "Well, it's my duty." It's like, I mean.
Well, what I do like about the way they've written all these characters is we can make assumptions about pure motive, but all these motives are cloudy to me and messy. And one can say Alicent wanted to be queen, right? Alicent was doing what her father asked. Then once she was in the job for a while, she had a sense of duty. She was persuaded to follow the seven. I mean, all these are motives that can be attributed, and there's not, I don't see anything in what they've done in the show that can prove that there's only one motive at work in any of these characters. And I just give the writers credit for making me watch Rhaenyra toast Alicent, thinking, well, okay, it's easy now because you know you're going to be queen, right? And then Alicent being moved by that, I had to say, I was like, don't you get it? She's happy now because she's going to be the queen and she's trying to be your friend again. But I'm not right in that. That's just an experience I had of how those characters were. And I just love the messy motives that are all over the place. And I
again, I think in that scene, you know, I think Alicent saw exactly what I think she saw right through Rhaenyra. And that's why her response when she said, we're both mothers.
Yeah.
We both love our children.
Yeah. We
have more in common than you think. That, like, I see you. And it is unfortunate that we're no longer sisters, but
the game's on.
The game is on.
So, hey, before we go any further, I don't want to interrupt. I got to tell you, I wore my Star Trek Expendable crew member t-shirt in tribute to Sir Vaemond. Because someone was going to go. And I have to say, on YouTube, I found a video of a bar at which people were watching House of the Dragon together. And that scene, when they showed that scene, the bar just went nuts. And then in the YouTube video, you can see them going back and forth, different people's perspective. And then when I watched it again, the pacing of this episode was stellar. I mean, the pacing of when the king, Viserys, walks in as Rhaenyra is about to make her case, the pacing of Vaemond calling, Rhaenyra, calling her kids bastards and calling her a whore. Then they shoot to the king. They say, I'll have your tongue. They go back to Vaemond. Whoosh.
Well, I think it works because they really only told one story.
Yeah, exactly.
In this episode.
Yeah.
And that was great.
Yes. And Damon's motives just came out like that quickly. I mean, it was intense. I thought it was exceptional writing, to be honest. I thought
this episode so far. And I still think I think it was the first scene. Is it the opening scene where we see Daemon collecting the dragon eggs?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's the second scene. The opening scene was Rhaenys learning about
being very,
which was also a really, really good scene. We have to do like a whole episode dedicated to Rhaenys. I mean,
yes,
she had some amazing scenes. She's a very, very, very interesting character.
And she wields
a lot of power in that family.
Yes. And I loved it when Rhaenyra kind of came to her to make a plea, offers the marriages, and she goes, well, look, tomorrow Hightowers are going to put you on your knees and I have to stand alone. Well, she's the one that actually saved the day.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, actually, in the end, Viserys came in and saved the day, but still, Viserys came in and then she
chose her as
exactly
the final decider of this.
And you know what I love about that? That's the only thing that didn't have a plan to it. In other words, you could always say Viserys was trying to make sure his daughter was the queen, and that's why he made the judgment. But you can't say anything like that when that kind of motive when he asks Rhaenys. He says the person who has best access to Corlys's motives is his wife. What does she have to say? That's not part of I don't think that was part of a game. I think that was him honestly thinking she's the one who would have the most straightforward perspective. And that moment of non-gameplay, I guess, was pivotal. So I thought, anyway, I experienced
Rhaenyra's, offer was pivotal.
Totally.
Because I wasn't sure if Rhaenys, when she opened her that was like pure suspense for me. Yes. I thought she was going to say, it's Baelish, honestly. He wants, because that's, what she wanted.
Yeah.
But she was like, well, actually.
Yeah.
And an interesting turn of events looks like it'll be, Luke will be
Right.
Lord of the Tides, and he'll,
Ooh.
you know, be married to my daughter. I mean, that was really, really genius. That was a great
Yeah.
scene. Rhaenys, quite interesting.
Yeah. And then her
Rhaenys,
final
yeah.
scene. Yeah.
And I feel like that is an ally that Rhaenyra really needs to be
Yes.
happy and not piss off.
Yes. You're exactly right.
Rhaenyra.
And her-
piss her
I
off.
gotta say, I think
Yes.
Rhaenys is definitely one of the best players there.
Mhm.
But I think that also what's interesting is the players who are the best players are the ones who don't have a lot of drama around them, because they make the decisions that prevent the drama from showing up on their doorstep.
Or they just keep their moments of gameplay minimal, and you know, like Daemon kind of coming out. Daemon sees the moment to kill Vaemond.
Yeah.
Because the minute the king said that's treason, right? The minute the king accused him of treason, Daemon could kill him with no repercussions. He was just doing the will of the king. Daemon sensed that moment and did it. And so the better game players, they just keep back until it's, as you know, till the moments to strike has maximal impact. I think you're right on that.
And she's got a lot of skin in this game. She's lost both of her children.
Oh yeah.
The dragons are quite interesting.
Totally.
I want to hear more about, I mean, I thought that scene where we saw, you know, a dragon's nest
Right.
and the eggs and how, I mean, that was really, really, really cool. And
It
apparently
was.
they're asexual.
Oh,
Don't know.
fair enough.
Yeah.
That's true. I didn't even think of that. That's true.
So
Huh.
Drogon, 200 years later, could have laid a clutch of eggs
Yep.
anywhere
Anywhere.
in Westeros or Essos. I
Yeah.
don't think he's the last dragon.
Mm.
And whatever Game of Thrones sequels or this, you know, Winds of Winter, whatever the last book is called,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we find out what happens to Dany's body and we find out whether or not there are more dragon eggs out there. We don't, I mean, just because Drogon's name is Drogon doesn't mean that Drogon is a boy.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, and it also just doesn't matter because apparently dragons can change sex like frogs. Like
Oh,
certain
fair
species
enough.
of
I
frogs.
know. That's awesome. I didn't know that.
So I would actually just like a whole series on dragons.
And believe me, if dragons were having sex in the mythology, we would have seen it in the show by
Oh,
now.
we would have heard about it. We would have heard all
We
about
would
it.
have
I'm sure it
heard
would be
and seen all
quite
that
an
mess.
event. Have you ever heard two cats mating? Could you imagine two dragons?
My gosh. All righty then.
All
On
right.
that note, anything else about this episode you guys want to talk about?
Pardon me?
All right then. Oh, go ahead. You going to say something?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So why don't you go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you on social media, Cianna?
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at CICIGREAVES.
Excellent. How about you, Stanford?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, at SW Carpenter.
Fantastic. You can find all episodes of Dragons in the House at the Dark Loops Productions channel on YouTube. If you want to write in, tell us what we got right, tell us what we got wrong, do so on this YouTube page, or send an email to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to read it at the end of our next discussion. So there it is. From all of us to all of you, big hugs. And remember, all men
All
must
men
die.
must die.
Bye-bye.